Welcome to this special edition of Keeping It Real, featuring panel guests who have shared their business stories in our guest blog and join us to discuss topics trending in business. Our guests are experts in becoming an author and sharing their stories on a global stage, international bestsellers, and those who have recently published. We will discuss their tips on putting pen to paper and getting published. I'd like to introduce you to our panel. Nathalie Plamondon-Thomas is an author, a speaker, and master life coach from Vancouver, BC. Christy Stangland is an author, a mindfulness and meditation coach from Toronto, Ontario. Heidi Smith is an author, a life coach from Victoria, BC. And Jeff Brandius is an author, sales coach, and training solutions from St. Petersburg, Florida. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I want to start with Nathalie because I consider Nathalie a serial author. She has oodles of books in her repertoire. And I wanted to ask Nathalie, what was the idea or what was the first thought that you had when you decided to become an author and put pen to paper and share all your wisdom with folks?
So honestly, I had this voice in my head, obviously, that I'm French, and the voice was telling me, what, you want to write books like in English? It's never going to work. You're not good enough. Are you kidding me? So fast track 17 books later, I had to first get rid of all the limiting beliefs about, oh, there's so many books out there. Who wants to read mine? And there's so many books on that specific topic. And I was giving conferences. So the idea came after, after you give a conference, people ask for your PowerPoint presentation. So I would send my PowerPoint presentation, and I thought, I wish I had like something to give them. So maybe I could use. So my first book was actually a recording. I had filmed my conference and I had transcribed it, like just with the. And this was way before you could use services like rev.com to transcribe automatically. So I had giving that as a contract to a student, listen to it, type it for me. And that became the first draft of my first book.
Isn't that fantastic? Good for you.
Yes.
And here we are 17 books later. And I know that you're an international best-selling author going to a global audience. So, I mean, that really, how does that make you feel?
I have to say that it doesn't make me feel any better or worse. I'm a confidence expert, so I was very confident before the books, but it made everybody else feel different about me. When you have in your title, so I have 17 books, 12 international #1 bestsellers. So that is, I'm not better because I've written books, but the perception, I'm an authority on these topics. So you're an author, you're an authority. And I would like to say to the audience here that because we have books, it's not that we're better than you. It's just because we took the time to write our knowledge. But everybody has that knowledge. And you should put it in a book because the world will see you differently because you'll become an authority on the topic. So that's just what I would like to encourage everybody. You all have a book inside you. There's something that the world
can share. Yeah. Now that's a really wonderful segue to Heidi, who's a recently published author. How are you finding people's perception of you and your credibility factor now that your book has been published and you made it on the Amazon top 10 list?
Well, it's different. I mean, my story was very personal. And so actually the reaction is, it's a very personal reaction. Like people, talk to me and they feel closer to me. They feel like they know me because, my book was very raw and revealing. And so people resonate with some of the things that I shared, which is, that is a wonderful thing because that was the point of the book,
right?
Was to let people know that they're not alone. If you've ever felt this way, I felt this way. If you've ever felt this way, at least one person that feels that way. And there's probably many, many, many more.
Right.
And, life just feels much easier when you're not alone.
Right. That's true. Now, Christy, you're getting ready to publish your second book. So give our viewing and listening audience some insight into the success that you had with your first book. How do you actually use it? Because, we're all talking about sharing our story and putting it out there on the platforms, but how do you physically use your first book?
Well, I also do retreats and I do workshops. And so depending at Valentine's Day, I partnered with a couple of women and we did something, we did meditation and some other modes as a Valentine to yourself. And so, I handed this out to everyone.
Right.
And, with the signed copy. And some of the people already had the book. And for them, I just put my name so they could, gift it to someone else. But
right.
I have to say that one of the best feedback I got from someone, because, mine is all about embracing each day with peace and calm,
right.
was they have it by their bedstand and they just having it there makes them feel so great.
Isn't that cool?
When they wake up.
Good for you. Good for you. Now, Jeff, you are in a whole different realm. So you've spent time in, the wonderful city of New York, where you were in a very corporate job and you decided to take the leap into entrepreneurship. And your books are more about how do we sell? How do we get the word out there? How do we make our businesses process driven? So what's your reaction been? Because, in addition to Nathalie talking about confidence and Heidi's talking about joy and Christy's talking about meditation and peace and calm, you're going, get out there, folks, and start selling. So how has the reaction been to the books that you provide to folks?
So those that read it love it, because it's not how to sell book. We all have our methods. We all have our ways that we go about things. And, at the end of the day, when I ask people, are you in sales? And people say, no, no, I'm not in sales. But you know what? Every day you're selling yourself. Even if you're talking to a spouse or a loved one or a child, I mean, that's all part of a sales process, whether or not you want to believe it or not. Mm-hmm. So how you communicate not only internally in your relationships, but how you communicate externally to your customers and your prospects, it's almost in one and the same, because you're overcoming objections. If you're having that fight with your loved one or that discussion with your loved one, or you're having an objection with a prospect, you are always selling at the end of the day. So it's been very well received, to answer your question. And it's really bringing back some basic concepts to people that we tend to forget, because we always want to think about the next best thing and what can I do differently and things like that. Right. So kind of my sales books processes is really back to basics on how to get the deal done.
It's all basically talking, right? Like we're trying to convey a concept that we have, really, no matter what it is that we do. As an author, we're trying to convey a message. So, I love that your comment that, we think that we're not selling, but we actually are selling. No matter what we do, we are trying to sell the product or service that we provide. I'm going to ask an open question to the floor, and that is, what have you found has been your best marketing tool for getting your voice out there in the global market? Who would like to answer that question?
Saw it if you like. I got last time. I'll be first this time.
Sure.
So I use LinkedIn primarily as my marketing tool. Okay, it's really it's a methodology where the executives or the sales folks are on. It's a professional environment, and that's really what the folks that I'm looking for is on LinkedIn. So it's whether it's an email or a hello, nice to connect with you, or nowadays it's more of a VSL, visual sales letter, or a little introduction. Having these little perks in LinkedIn where now you can actually do videos on your banner. Right. Just way to get people to know you and reach out to you a little bit quicker and easier.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is know where your market niche is. So know where your client is, really, because I have to tell you that, that's really the difficult thing, right? I see Nathalie on Instagram all the time. So I have an Instagram account. I'm one of those scrollers, right? And all of a sudden I'll see this, wonderful face, and she has the background down pat and she's got the visuals. And then there comes this face and she's talking about one of the concepts found in her book. So Nathalie, tell us, does Instagram meet your marketing need? Is it a way in which you're able to connect with your audience?
Yes. Somehow it's not just Instagram. So
Right.
I do post on 3 major platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn.
Oh,
I've figured out that, all the sizes are different. So on LinkedIn, you want to be horizontal, on Facebook, horizontal, on Instagram, you want to be square or vertical, right? So I figured that if you post square everywhere, square will work on LinkedIn, square will work on Facebook, and will work on Instagram. So I transform all my posts. I film horizontal, but then I add a banner at the top with the title, banner at the bottom to put my subtitles or the captions, so that most people are at the coffee shop just looking at their phone, right?
Yeah.
And they're not on the sound. So if you have your subtitle underneath your video, you want to do that so that people can know what you're saying. So the square works. Now, the one thing that I will say about any social media is trust. And every interaction with people need to increase trust. And if you go to a coffee shop and you meet somebody for the very first time, you drop down on your knee and you pop up the ring, they're going to say, you're weird.
Isn't that the truth? It's a little too much information, right?
Exactly, because you just met them. You're in a public place.
Yeah.
So you want to see them a few times. But the problem is, if you go in a coffee shop, meet somebody, you really connect, and then you leave, and you don't have their phone number, you don't have a way to contact them, you might never see them again. You can go back to Starbucks and try to be there maybe at the same time and try to hope that they'll be there at the same time. But what are the odds? And that's the thing on social media. It's posting, hoping that somebody will see you twice in a row.
Yeah.
So the best way is to ask for their phone number. But how do you do that? So every marketing piece, I have a big strategy. I have a whole course on this. But you need to give them value and give, and have something that they can go download on your website for free, but in exchange for your email. But then the next email cannot be, oh, and I have something to sell. Now I'm going to pitch you. It has to be value. And eventually they come to you when they need. It's like somebody that sells tires or fix flat tires, and they advertise to you that that's what they do, and they give you a lot of road safety tips and everything. But if you don't have a flat tire, you don't need their services.
Right.
But the day that you get a flat tire, you'll remember. You'll say, I know who to go to.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
You need to treat every relationship on social media. And that's how, and I get about 300 new people on my list per month with social media. People, you need your social media to have a plan, to have a strategy, and to be inward facing towards your website.
For sure.
So that you continue to offer them value and increase trust at every single interaction.
That's excellent advice. Now, Heidi, what kind of marketing did you do to get on the Amazon top 10 best-selling list in very short order after publishing? I'm sure there was a strategy. Can you share with our viewing and listening audience one of the things that you did to try to market your book to get on that list?
I connected, I should say, because in this world, we're connecting via text, via email, via social media. I connected with everybody I knew and asked them to connect with people they knew to share the word about the book. And so, yeah, that is like relationships. And, believing that it was bigger than me. Like it wasn't an ego thing. It truly, like Natalie was just saying, it's about giving. And I created this book because I wanted to give something to people that were suffering the way that I had suffered, to share a message of hope and to share practical things to do. And so people were able to get behind that message because, my relationships know me already. So there's already a trust. And so they were willing to share about my book. And, that's what happened.
Perfect. Now, Christy, one of the things that you do is you try to connect with your target market, and your market niche is obviously busy women. And so one of the things that you're trying to target is give people an opportunity to take that deep breath. I mean, that's what meditation is all about, right? So what was the purpose for it? What's the tangent or the target market for your second book? Because if the first book had a strategy, does the second book have a strategy, or is it just following suit?
Well, it's following suit in the sense that the first book was really, different ideas to take that break, to go get into meditation, different ideas. I've really been something I've been doing myself to bring in more awareness. We can't make more time, right? Money isn't going to give us more time.
That's
But
true.
awareness does. It will make you feel that way, and aligning with the seasons. And so I'm planning on a series of 4, but the first one is embrace each season. And so it's going to be for winter, and it is about different ideas of embrace, wrap yourself in winter joy. That's the tagline too.
So I love that you've got a seasonality to the book. So your intention to start was that you wanted to do 4.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So let me ask Jeff, you've got a series of books that are sales oriented, that are process driven, that are helping people with the training part. Did you do something similar? So did you say, okay, I'm going to start with this one, and I have so many great ideas, which I think is probably what happened to Nathalie 17 books later, right? That you start with one and then you go, wow, like this is pretty good. People are catching on. Maybe I'm going to do this tangent and then that topic and then that topic. Is that how your book writing has happened?
Well, my first one, yes, was very general. My second one, I consider that to be my give back. I was an accountant in my previous life, as I like to phrase it, before I got into sales in the corporate world. And, accountants are probably one of the most introverted people. And yeah, I was at that point too, when I was an accountant. But there was no books or anything to tell accountants or suggest to accountants how to sell better and how to become what they call a rainmaker in their firm. So I wanted to do a give back to the accounting world, to the CPA world. So that was my second book. And my third book is going to be totally different and it's outside the realm, going a different avenue, totally different sector. And it's about retirement. I think we all get to the retirement stage in life and we haven't planned well, or we're in debt and we don't know how to get out of debt. So I'm kind of going into a little bit more personal positioning on this to really look at a different niche of people and a different attraction. So
good for you. Well, that's a wonderful segue into my next question, which is, there's got to have been a mentor for some of you. I mean, we all have mentors, whether they're people that we speak to or whether they're inspirational, someone that we may have seen on, social media, or we've been following their career. I'm going to ask Heidi, is there anyone in your inner circle or for you that was actually a mentor that said, you know what, you can actually do this? Just put pen to paper, you got to start somewhere. And, I believe in you and let's take this journey together. So was there someone who actually was inspirational for you?
Well, I'm surrounded by authors. My husband is an author. His father was an author. So that certainly had an impact on me. Like, as you know, my husband, we have like a competition, right? Because I'm trying to catch up to him and his success. So that's very motivating. And I had a coach. Like, I met my husband's coach, and we went to a retreat in Italy, which was stunning. And she pulled me aside and she said, you should be with these people. You should be sharing your story. I know you have something to say. And that just woke up the seed inside of me. Like Natalie was talking about, I always had something that told me I want to write a book. And so having someone say, I want to hear what you have to say,
right?
That changed everything.
So did anybody else have a mentor, inspirational, or Christy?
I had actually, this is my 4th book, because I was a CPA that became a web designer in 2000. And at that point, a couple of years in, I wrote, there was somebody that was doing an actual, mentoring program for those that wanted to write a book. And I think it was called like Write a Book in 6 months, something like that, which was kind of crazy, but it was very, very helpful.
Good for you.
It let you know, do you want to self-publish? Do you want to, go to a publisher?
Right.
What do you need to know? And an important part, which I think was just mentioned, was that one of the biggest pieces was just helping people create the time to write.
Right.
And so I ended up getting up at 5 a.m. to write, for an hour. It was just like, I'm going to keep it really bite-sized and simple. But I think can be a big stumbling block for people.
Sure. That's a really good point.
And my first book was Effective Websites for CPAs.
Oh, geez. There you go. You two are knocking it out of the park because you're so not typical CPAs, right? Like, what happened to the introvert? There was something inside both of you to break out of the shell. Now, Jeff, who was your mentor? I mean, who was the person that said, Jeff, you can do this. You need to share this information. This is pretty cool stuff.
So I was a VP of sales in the corporation. I had a sales teams, and I had this rep, Amy, who I still talk to, and she goes to me, "You're so good at what you do. You ought to write a book."
And how many years ago was that, Jeff?
That was probably about 10 years ago.
See?
Okay. And I go, "No, I can't. I'm not an author. I'm not a book writer." And she goes, "No, you are." For years she was after me to do it.
Well, we're glad she was.
Yeah. So it took me almost 2 years or 3 years to get it done.
Okay.
Because I only worked on it when I was on the cruise ship. So I never.
On our holiday.
I like that method.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Nathalie, having written 17 books, I mean, clearly there's a significant amount of time. I mean, I'm hearing stories about, 2 years to write the, first book, a year to write. So when you have written 17 books, I mean, clearly you have to have a process in order to get the words down. So how long approximately, if you had to take an average of the time that you spent putting pen to paper, how long by the time you first hits the paper, when is the publish date?
It takes at least a year to do a good job, I find. To write it, it's not, the writing piece is not as hard anymore. There's different techniques that you can use. I'm a speaker, so I can just record a whole bunch of my conferences, get them transcribed. I blog every week, so I could transcribe my blog, and they become chapters, parts of chapters. So the content, we all have a lot of content. So my first book took about 3 years to write, and then you think I'd learn. So the second book took me how long? 3 years.
What do you think? You're a perfectionist, though. You wanted it to be perfect, right?
And then the third book, another 3 years. And then I started popping them out. Like 1 year, I launched 3. This year, I launched 3 as well. Now, it is an intention. And you have written multiple books as well, Christy and Jeff. And it's the intention. Once I realized that I did not have only one book, that I had a book series in my head, that's when you start treating them as such. And some of the books are companion books to the Think Yourself series. Right. Some of them have the full DNA system that I created. So books like 27 Tips Too. So that book, the Think Yourself Healthy, took me a week. I went to Palm Desert for a week, wrote it in a week, just write 27 tips and then elaborate on them. And then it's not a story. It's not like each chapter is a different tip, very easy to write. Right. I have one of my book is a journal. So it's one page that repeats every week. So I have about 40 pages that I wrote at the beginning to explain the process. And that book I wrote in a week as well. The process to do a good job at publishing. There's a whole system to reach the #1 best-selling list. There's testimonials to get your cover, the marketing campaign that precede the launch of the book, and the pre-selling, because I pre-sell everything. I have 25 online courses, and I don't create an online course until I have sold it. So I put it on my website, click here for me to let you know when the course is ready. And when I have at least 25, 30 people ready to buy it, that's when I'll go create it. So I have one that I just launched now because I had enough people wanting it. So the idea is to pre-sell everything. And with my corporate clients, I do sell my books to the audience as well. And sometimes I even will use the inside cover, the two cover, and I get that printed for them. So there will be a message
That's a great idea
on the cover here, and then there will be an advertising also on the other side. So I don't know if you still.
That's really great tip. Yeah, that's a great tip, Nathalie, because the other thing is the next step once we've written it, of course, is getting it published. So, I mean, it's all wonderful to have this wonderful book sitting on our desk at home, but, somehow we have to share it with the world. So, Jeff, did you traditionally publish or did you indie publish? Did you publish on your own? How did you decide that you were going to share your message once it was written?
KDP through Amazon Publishing basically is what we did. I had an editor hired to go through it, get it formatted, fix all the grammatical errors because I'm from New York, so I talk like a New Yorker. So we had to make it a little bit more generic. So it was really so you had to have someone really do the editing and the page formatting, the chapters, and all that good stuff, and get it into the right size. So that was not my
area of
forte.
expertise, right?
Yeah, by far not my expertise.
Yeah.
So I just had what someone else doing, and then it was just self-published on Amazon.
That's a really good point, is editing the book, because I don't know about you, but I've written 3 books, and I think I've reread I reread each book, I don't know how many times, probably 100 times, right? You just keep reading, reread. Oh no, change this, change that, right? But at some point in time, you have to commit to an editor. So did anybody have a professional editor besides Jeff that actually took a look? Okay, all of you?
Oh, you must.
So would you say, so would you give that as a tip, piece of advice for our viewing and listening audience who may be taking notes and saying, okay, that's a really great idea. How many of you would say get a professional editor? Show of hands. Okay, fantastic. Because you know what? To Jeff's point, the grammar is huge. I mean, Nathalie's already said her first language is French. She was going to write books in English. You're like, I may be making grammatical errors. I don't really know, right? So what a wonderful tip for our viewing and listening audience is, please get a professional editor, because Heidi, what were you going to say about professional editing?
The obvious things about the editor we've discussed, and having a professional editor gave me the freedom to just, write.
Put the words out.
Just put the words out. And I'd already, edited it so many times. But the professional editor, he came in, Trevor McMonigal is his name. He's brilliant. And he was a fresh set of eyes on the book. And so the intention was to make it the most concise piece of work for the audience. It was all about the audience. So like writing, I was thinking about the audience, of course, and the editor comes in and he's able to suggest, okay, you don't need this part, you don't need that part. And you leave your ego at the door and let the editor lead you. And, with the premise, like his suggestion was to me, it's your book. I'll tell you what I think, and you make the final decision.
Right.
And like 80% of what he said, I wholeheartedly agreed with, but wouldn't have thought of it on my own. Right. I needed that second set of eyes.
Right. Jeff?
I think the other thing besides editing is find someone to do a really nice professional cover. Also, don't try creating it yourself. Yeah, you can go onto other websites and pick a cover and modify it, but have someone, you're investing your time, you're investing so much effort into creating this. Invest a little bit more. Just like you're investing in the other, invest in someone to create a cover for you that's also going to be appealing and satisfactory and to the others, because what you like personally doesn't always
not
mean
appeal. Right. Yeah. And you know what? The other thing is, it's our image, right? Like what we're putting out there has to speak to the image and who you are as an authentic business person, as an entrepreneur. Nathalie?
And once the book is ready, hires also somebody to help you market it, because
Yeah.
so many people have, well, not as much anymore because we have the print on demand services, but I know a lot of friends that have thousands of books in their garage and they're not selling. So how do you sell them? So maybe we all need to hire Jeff.
Jeff is going to gift us his
it's a
book. Exactly. He's going to gift us his book on how to sell them.
And
We got the accountant version, or we got the
I
journal
did-
version.
Yeah, there you go, Christy.
I want to just touch on something Natalie mentioned about the testimonials, because
Oh,
I think
good
that
idea.
is so important. And
Yeah.
having something, on the back, it was funny. My husband was just in the airport and he said, "Oh yeah, I bought this book because this other author had recommended it,
Oh,
on the back
cool.
of the book." And it has such influence for people. So,
That's so true.
getting a testimonial from, someone and reaching high, shooting for the moon, is a wonderful thing to do.
That's a really great piece of advice.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask each of you, what is your, if you had to, take a look at the plan for the future, what would your plan be for the future? So, we've all got, Natalie's just saying she released 3 books this year. Christy's releasing another book. Jeff has got something in the hopper, and I'm sure that, our first time author Heidi has something she's noodling in the back of her mind. But in the next 3 years, where do you see yourself as an author, a speaker, a coach, a salesperson? Who would like to answer that question about if you plan ahead? Do you plan ahead for the next few years? Christy?
I used to plan ahead. I used to have that 5-year goal type thing, but I've really cut back on the planning.
Okay.
And
Let it go organic.
It really been organic, and everything seems to get done
Right.
and better.
Oh, good. Perfect. Now, Jeff, what about you? You're obviously planning the release of this next book. What about you? What have you got in the hopper?
So yeah, I got the, when you're in sales and you were running sales teams, the old saying is, fail to plan, plan to fail. So, you got to have a short-term goal. You got to have a long-term game plan. Sorry to contradict there. But at the end of the day, 3 years, I'd like to continue doing what I'm doing, probably slow down a little bit as you maybe do some more cruises, and maybe I can do some more
books.
book writing at that point.
Good for you. Heidi, what have you got in the hopper?
Just having fun with all of this, and make room for joy. That is my motto. And connecting with people, like, it's all about the relationships, the people that I'm meeting, and then they resonate with what I do, and they'll invite me to speak on their podcast, or come in and speak at their retreat. And so just more of that, just more and more of that. Yeah.
Good for you. Now, one of the things that we do in the traditional guest blog, which you've all participated in, is we ask folks to share 3 words of advice. But I'm going to ask each of you to summarize your experience in 1 word and give us an idea as to why that word is most important. And why don't we start with Christy? What's your word?
The word I thought of was persistence. I think is just really needed. If you're out there and you have that book in you and it keeps coming up for you, you just have to keep, I love that for a lot of us, it took 3 years, because that's persistence.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Heidi?
The word that I have is trust. So for all of you out there that have this calling to write a book, this inspiration, trust that there's someone that needs to hear it. It's not just wants to hear it, that there are people that need to hear what you say. Trust in that, and let it guide you when when those moments of insecurity and doubt show up, which they will when you're writing a book.
For sure.
Just remember that you wouldn't have that calling to write the book if there wasn't a reciprocal,
meant to
that's
be,
the way
right?
the universe works. People need to hear what you have to say. So trust that.
That's a really great word. And Jeff, what would your word be?
I'm going to go with legacy.
Ah, love that.
Okay. At the end of the day, with all due respect, we all pass away at some point in time. They haven't invented that magic pill. And what I want to leave behind is, my thoughts, my ideas, my suggestions. And the best way to do that is to build your legacies by writing a book, because that will live on and, way past us at the end of the day. So legacy is really what kind of would motivate me at this point to continue to write.
Well, that's really great. I love those 3 words because I think that they're extremely important for everyone. And Nathalie, we're going to ask Nathalie to share her 3 words. We lost her there for a second, and it looks like she's trying to come back. There we are. There's Nathalie. We're on our words. So what would be your word? What would be the one word that you would like to share with our viewing and listening audience that summarizes your experience? We've had legacy, we've had trust, we've had sort of tenacity and persistence. What would your word be?
Confidence.
And why is that important? Why do you think that confidence is an important word?
It's the base of everything. When you trust yourself, when you are at your best, the world is going so fast right now. Decisions are made in instant. We don't have time, and they're worth thousands of dollars, and they cannot be made with limiting belief or with negative self-talk or with bad habits, with stress and anxiety. And we need to be our best. And if you are your best and you are confident, you have every base of every decision, of every success. It's knowing that it's gonna work, and trusting ourselves is the number one thing.
I think that's a wonderful way to end the time that we've spent today talking about writing your first book and getting published. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you for sharing your expertise. I think for everyone who's writing notes, they've got a lot of really wonderful information that they can put in their own repertoire and start their journey into the world of publishing. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you,
Thanks
Trish.
for having us.
Lovely.
So much.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, our viewing and listening audience, for joining us today for this panel discussion in Keeping It Real, where we introduce you to the people behind the logo. And if you'd like to connect with our guests, you'll find their contact information in the description portion below. I'm Trish Tonai, founder and host for the series. And if you're interested in sharing your business story, visit our website at shareyourstories.online and subscribe to our channel, Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real. Thanks again for tuning in. We look forward to meeting you next time when we share another great idea. Thanks, everybody.